Give it up, Mr. Shepard Ferry in the house right here. See No Evil Ancho. You guys having a good time out there? I feel the love here tonight, man. We got a bunch of amazing artists donating their artwork. 100% of the profits going to the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. And I got my man right here, Paul Watson. Give it up, the man of the hour. Paul, great to have you here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to you, man. They're all yours.
Thank you, thank you. Well, this is the third See No Evil event, and it gets bigger every year. And thank you to everybody who's helped put this on, and it's a great source of support for our campaigns, and we need all the help we can get. We're about to go in a couple of months down for our 6th campaign down to the waters off of the coast of Antarctica to the Southern Ocean. And this will be, every year we've cost the Japanese whaling fleet their profits. As we said from the beginning, our objective is to sink the Japanese whaling fleet economically. And I think we're going to do it. This year we were able to save 305 whales out of their quota, and they had to extend their season 2 weeks to get that. And last year 500 whales, the year before that 500 whales. So there's about 1,500 whales that are swimming in the waters in the Southern Ocean because we intervened and because you supported us. You know, we get called a lot of names for what we're doing. You know, we're eco-terrorists and pirates. But you know, I really don't mind the pirate label. And they started calling us that. That's why we adopted our own Jolly Roger. And the reason for that, if you go back in history to the 17th century when piracy was out of control in the Caribbean, you've all seen Pirates of the Caribbean. It wasn't the British Navy that shut down the pirates. It wasn't the Spanish Navy. And the reason for that, they were all on the take. All those politicians and military people and merchants were getting money from the pirates. And therefore it was business as usual. Not much different than the way things are today. Piracy was ended in the Caribbean because of Henry Morgan, a pirate. If you want to stop pirates, you need pirates to do it. Because when you think about it, the biggest pirates of them all are the governments. And we're simply going down there and doing what the governments refuse to do. The Japanese are targeting endangered whales and an established international whale sanctuary in violation of a global moratorium on whaling, in violation of the Antarctic Treaty, in violation of the Convention of the International Trade in Endangered Species, and in violation of the Australian Federal Court. Now that sounds like criminals to me. The only difference between Japanese whalers and elephant poachers in East Africa is the fact that the poachers in Africa are poor. The Japanese are not. But I think that we're going to be able to end this within another year or so. We're probably the only show on television, Whale Wars, is trying to get ourselves off the air. And hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. But every year, you know, the Japanese are becoming more aggressive because they're becoming more frustrated. They're losing more money. And we have to escalate, they escalate. Last year they spent $8 million on defenses and offenses to try and stop us. They put out long-range acoustical weapons. They hit us with high-powered water cannons. Well, we've got our own high-powered water cannons this year, so we're going to go back. And we have our own acoustical weapons. And we have another vessel, the Earth Race. This vessel looks, well, this is the kind of boat that Batman would drive. Yes! It looks like a spaceship. It does 55 knots. It set the world record last year for going around the globe in 60 days. Wow. And we need a boat that can intercept the harpooners, and this one is it. So we're going to be able to intercept them. And thanks to the support of all of our supporters, we've been able to secure that vessel. We've been able to repair the damage to the Steve Irwin, and we've been able to get more equipment, and we'll be much better prepared for this year. Every year we're getting stronger. But I want to just share you a story, just a brief story about why I feel so committed to protecting the whales. And it goes back many years. I was one of the co-founders of the Greenpeace Foundation originally, and we came up with this idea in 1974 to go save the whales. Now, we were reading a lot of Gandhi at the time, and we felt that all we had to do was get in front of that harpoon and block it, and they wouldn't fire. And so in June of 1975, Bob Hunter and I were in a small little rubber boat in front of a Soviet harpoon vessel, only 60 miles off the coast of Northern California. They were whaling there then, before the 200-mile limit. And behind us was a 150-foot steel Soviet harpoon vessel bearing down on us at full speed at about 22 knots. And in front of us were 8 magnificent sperm whales that were fleeing for their life, trying to escape. And every time the harpooner tried to get a shot, I would maneuver the boat to block the harpoon. And this worked for about 20 minutes. And then the captain came down on the catwalk of that whaling boat, and he screamed into the ear of that harpooner. Then he looked at us, he smiled, and he brought his finger across his throat like that. And that's when I realized Gandhi wasn't going to pull us through that day. And a few moments later, there was this incredible explosion, and this 150-pound grenade-tipped harpoon flew over our head and slammed into the backside of one of the whales in front of us, and she screamed. It was a very human-like scream. She rolled on her side in a fountain of blood, and suddenly the largest whale in this pod of sperm whales slapped the water with his tail and disappeared beneath the surface. And he swam directly underneath of us and threw himself at the bow of that Soviet harpoon vessel to protect his pod. And they had quickly loaded a second harpoon unattached, and at point-blank range, the harpooner pulled that trigger, and the harpoon struck that whale in the head. And he screamed and fell back in incredible agony, thrashing about on the surface, only about 20-30 feet from us. And as he rolled about on the surface in his own blood, I caught his eye. And he looked right at us, and then he dove, and I saw a trail of bloody bubbles coming at us real fast underwater, and he came up and out of the water, towering over our little inflatable. The next move was to come forward and fall on top of us, to crush us. And as I watched, his eye rose up out of the water right beside me, so close I could have reached up and circled my fingers around a 6-inch tooth in his lower jaw. That's how close he was. I looked into that eye, and what I saw in that eye changed my life forever, because I saw understanding. He understood what we were trying to do, because I could see the incredible movement of his muscles as he pulled himself back. Instead of coming forward and crushing us, he deliberately pulled himself back. I saw him begin to sink into the sea. I saw his eye disappear beneath the surface, and he died. He could have killed us. He chose not to do so. And I saw something else in that eye too. Pity. Not for himself, but for us. That we could commit such an act of blasphemy, that we could take life so thoughtlessly. And I began to think, why are we killing these whales? The Russians were killing whales for spermaceti oil, which is used for high heat-resistant lubricating oil for machines. And one of the pieces of machinery they were using it in was the manufacture of intercontinental ballistic missiles. And I said, here we are destroying this beautiful, intelligent, socially complex creature for the purpose of making a weapon meant for the mass extermination of human beings. And that's when it occurred to me, we must be insane. And from that moment on, I said, I do what I do for the whales, not for people, for the whales. So that means